morning and welcome to BBOC Live, presented by BetMGM. This is the weekend college basketball betting preview. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as they do each and every Saturday morning, are my BBOC fellow co-hosts Mike Calabrese, Mike Randall, and of course, Greg Waddell. We have a lot to get to today. What a day of college basketball. Best non-March Saturday of the season by far. 3 top 10 matchups. I don't even know how that's mathematically possible in one regular season day. Throw in another one tomorrow for what it's worth. But we'll get to 2 of them. We will talk Duke-UNC. We'll talk Kentucky, Tennessee. We also will get to Houston, Kansas a couple other times throughout the show. We will give everyone will give 2 best bets, and we will give our 4-team underdog moneyline parlay. Before we get started, I do want to remind everyone to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there, in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. And also a word from our sponsor, BetMGM. BBOC is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $158 in bonus bets when you bet $5 for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Greg, I'll throw it to you before we get started here. How excited are you for today? Kind of has like a March feel to today.
Yeah, I'm shaking, Stuck. I really am. First off, 3 top 10 matchups. Like, when has that ever happened? And to be gifted that the first weekend where we don't have football on our television, it feels like a gift from the gods. I'm also personally excited because those at home might be able to see this. I have a little goatee situation going on. Stuck, we went head-to-head last week. My luck has turned since losing a bet with a friend that requires me to wear a goatee for a week. I've been hot with the bets this week, and I'm hoping that carries into the best slate of the season today.
Yeah, for those that didn't watch last week, Greg is currently up plus $500. If anyone beats me head-to-head for the season, get $500. Tune in to see if there are any head-to-heads this week, but congrats on Northwestern last week. Easy, no sweat, blowout cover. But let's get things started with our first best bets. I will kick things off. We just talked about all these top 10 matchups. We even have to get Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Indiana State, Drake. A lot of great games across the board. So why not kick things off with Southeast Missouri, the least profitable team in all of college basketball. But I like them here. I think this is a really good, first of all, it's a good scheduling spot. 4th straight road game for Western Illinois. They don't have much depth, and they're only on 2 days rest. Meanwhile, SEMO has, 2 extra days, 4 days of prep here. And I think it's just a good matchup for them. They match up well defensively. Western Illinois is going to get to the line a ton, but they're horrendous from the free throw line. That could end up deciding the cover late. But it's actually a good schematic matchup. The first meeting against the Leathernecks, it looks like a 7-point win. Is a 1-point game with a minute to go. I think this is a great buy low spot on SEMO, who never seems to cover. So hopefully today is the day. What a way to start off the show. If you were tuning in for Blue Bloods and got SEMO, Randall, pick us up here.
Yeah, we're going to keep going here with another marquee matchup, if you will. I will take Eastern Kentucky -1 at Kennesaw State. Eastern Kentucky was the favorite here in the ASUN, picked first in the preseason poll. Now, why? Because last year they did a great job. They lost in the CBI championship to Charlotte, and they brought back almost everyone, ranking 6th in minutes continuity per KenPom. They were rolling. They went to Queens last game, 5.5-point road favorite. Gave up a ton of points, 93 points. Just was a bad game. Everyone has them. I think they bounce back here. Kennesaw had a great year last year, but of course, new coach Antoine Petaway. They've lost 3 in a row, including 2 at home. Eastern Kentucky, like I said, 7-0. They're going to force turnovers. They have 3 elite scorers that average 15 points per game. I think it's a great bounce back spot. I think Eastern Kentucky is the best team in this conference. I don't think they're losing 2 in a row. Yes, it's on the road against Kennesaw, but not the same Kennesaw team as last year. They're solid metrically, do well on the road. 3 players averaging 15 points. Great bounce back spot. I will take the Colonels -1 to continue their winning ways and bounce back from the loss at Queens.
Yeah, I've really picked it up in league play outside of that last game. Greg, we finally have some power conference action. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take a page out of Randall's book here. I'm backing the Canes. Throw the Canes up, gentlemen. Listen, they always make things sweaty, but I still believe in my core that when Miami's at full strength, they are a much different animal than they have been for the majority of this season. And it seems like every time you expect them to be at full strength, a different guy goes down. They were without Wooga Poplar for a ton of games. Norchad Omier missed a game. Matthew Cleveland's off of 2 straight games missed. He practiced yesterday. It sounds like he's going to give it a go. One of the only times this season we've seen Miami at full strength was when they beat Virginia Tech by 4 in Blacksburg. Virginia Tech, I want to buy the concept of this team, but they're 0-4 this season against top 75 opponents on the road. The average margin of defeat in those games has been 13 points. They just don't hang against teams with firepower. Miami at full strength certainly has firepower. And really, Virginia Tech's a one-trick pony to me where if they're hitting their threes, yes, they can hang in a game. They can beat anybody. But Miami's defense, while there's holes, they usually struggle with teams that generate easy buckets. They don't really struggle at guarding the three-point line, at least on the year. Opponents are just shooting 29% from 3 against them. I think this is a good spot. I got it at 2.5 last night. It's up to 3.5, which kind of signals to me that they're going to be at full strength, and I still like that number for the Canes.
Good stuff there. Are you going to, Red, are you going to do another song and dance for us for Miami, or is that only when you bet them?
No, I like the songs and I have no problem bringing them. But last week, I didn't need to have another ulcer after Miami just gagged it to Pittsburgh. But we did get to the window by 0.5 point. But I think we'll save the song stuck for maybe next week.
Yeah, luckily Pitt fired up a shot with 4 or 5 seconds left, and Miami was able to hit both free throws to get you there. Calabrese, you are going to go to one of those aforementioned marquee matchups that we previously talked about. Where are you going for your first best bet?
Well, it's difficult to have a pick more entertaining than your SEMO pick, the famous alumnus from SEMO, Cedric the Entertainer. Just a little fact there. All right, I'll go to Houston, Kansas. As you mentioned, I got the number I wanted. Kansas now is just a 1-point underdog. Just the 3rd time since 1989 that they're a home dog, which is incredible. But I think this is the moment to fade the Jayhawks. McCullough has that bone bruise on his knee. He's going to play, but he's going to be limited in this one up against a Houston defense that is top rated in America. And really, forget about their contemporaries. You got to start going back in the history books to figure out just how good this Houston defense is. According to KenPom, they're the best defense since Texas Tech in 2019. That squad went all the way to the national title game. They have 4 defenders in the top 25 nationally, according to Evan Maya. And that includes the #1 defender in the country in Shed at the point. And I think that's going to be critical here because outside of McCullough, who's going to score for this Kansas team on the perimeter? You know, Furphy has been shooting close to 50% in conference since being bumped up to the starting lineup from 3-point range. He's up against a Houston defense that is 8th nationally, defending the 3-point stripe. And in addition, my favorite stat out there is the kill shot margin. Kansas is plus 23 in kill shots, or excuse me, Houston this year. And that means that they've gone on 10-0 runs or better, and they just don't allow any. So I think that's what they're going to do to be able to run the Jayhawks off of their home floor. I know that Fog Allen can be a very difficult place to play, but if they get an early lead and quiet the crowd, I think this could be a humbling loss for Bill Self.
All right, good stuff there. I will have some more to say about that matchup because we will touch on it later in the show. But let's move on to one of those other top 10 matchups and talk about our first marquee matchup of the day. SEC clash right here in my backyard in Lexington between Tennessee and Kentucky. Should get both teams' best effort. Probably would have anyway, but both teams coming off upset losses at home. Tennessee went down to South Carolina and Kentucky went down to Florida in overtime. Tennessee's a small road favorite here. I actually like the Cats. I also going to look to bet them live. I think this game, higher scoring. There's going to be some runs in this game. But the Tennessee defense, especially in transition, is just not the same unit that it was last year. Really miss Phillips. Dalton Connect, incredible scorer, but, not an elite defender. You look at their transition defense per synergy. Last year, in efficiency, 100th percentile, elite. This year, 18th. So you can get out and run off misses. No one is better at getting out and running than Kentucky. So I think that, when Tennessee's shots aren't falling, Kentucky's going to be able to get some easy buckets. Kentucky does have some issues on defense, but a lot of it's defending and pick and roll. It's not really what Barnes does with his offense. He has at times increased that rate. So we'll see if he does that tonight. But I think Kentucky has enough scoring at home and can actually get out in transition against this more vulnerable Tennessee defense than we're used to seeing. So I like the Cats. Randall, you're taking a bit of a different angle here.
Yeah, what is this number, guys, on the total? I'm going under. I think we have it 159.5. It's our biggest edge overall at FTN, 17.7% edge on our models today. Guys, 12 of the last 13 games have been under this number between Kentucky and Tennessee, and I'm talking way under this number, 130s, 140s. It's going to be a close game. Stuckey just talked about Tennessee scoring against Kentucky. How is that going to go? I understand Tennessee's defense is not where it normally is, but this is there's some young players. This is the first time in a battle here against Tennessee. I think it's going to be a close game. If it's a close game, is it going to be high scoring? No, Tennessee usually does enough to keep these games somewhat under control. And history between these two rivals says that these games tend to be under. I understand Kentucky has exploded and they look great and they're shooting threes, especially early in the year. They shot threes at over a 38% rate, which is not normally what they do. Cal's teams get better offensively as the year goes on. But I'm siding with the fact that it's a rivalry. I'm siding with history. I'm siding with the fact that Tennessee is going to keep this game close. And if it's a close game between Tennessee and Kentucky, I don't think it's going to be 80-80. And this game can still be 80-75, and I win. So we'll take the under here. 159.5 is what I got it at.
Well, you had an ulcer last week from Miami. You might get an ulcer betting Kentucky under. So I wish you well. As someone who's watched every Kentucky game this year, it should be a sweat at least. But yeah, if it's close, late, major implications of this game, you really could see this grind down in the second half. Greg, where are you going here?
So I'm leaning more on your side than I am on the total, Stuck. I like Kentucky. I'm going to take the 1.5 point just because I can't get this nasty little visual out of my head of Dalton Connect doing something heroic in the final seconds. But I think the spot is definitely a Kentucky spot. I've got a crazy number for you. John Calipari, in his entire Kentucky tenure, has only lost back-to-back games at home twice. Those were both in 2021, his only team that finished the season with a losing record. That team was a disaster. Every other season, he's never lost twice in a row at home. It's a bounce-back spot for both teams, certainly. I like the Rupp Arena elements here. It's going to be jumping. Tennessee's very good. I don't question their defense. I don't question Connect. I do question if they're a little bit one-dimensional or a lot of bit one-dimensional. I mean, I think with Kentucky, we talked about this pregame. Reed Sheppard's probably going to spend some time on Connect in this game. Reed Sheppard's a solid defender. I think Kentucky's defense, which has been a disaster, struggles much more when you're playing a team that has multiple options. When they can key in on one guy, I actually don't think that's as difficult for them to contend with. And Tennessee's just 1-4 this season outside of their home gym against top 40 opponents. Very good basketball team. Hasn't been great in their toughest games outside of home. Give me Kentucky plus number. Can't believe it.
Cowboys, you on board with us with the Cats?
Yeah, I'm going money line on UK here. You guys hit all the big points. The Cats are 12th nationally in fast break points at nearly 16 per game, so they can take advantage of those liabilities for the Volunteers. And I would go even further on Reed Sheppard. He's the 12th rated defender, according to Evan Maya, in the entire country. And Connect has been just an absolute revelation in the past 6 weeks. But this is the best defender, one-on-one that he's going to play. We'll see how much Sheppard draws him. But I think if he's effective, there's no reason to go away from him. And if he gets the best of him, even holding Connect to 18, 20 points, I'm not sure Tennessee has enough to be able to, push the buttons to get scoring from other people in their lineup to make up for a human performance from them. So I'll go ahead with Big Blue Nation here.
Yeah, there is some, added variance when you're betting Tennessee games. Greg, as you alluded to with some heroics, like Connect is capable of going for like 38, right? Where you just can't miss. But on the other side of the coin, like if he's off, where does Tennessee's offense is just then becomes so stagnant and he can really shoot them out of the game. Should be a good one in Lexington at Rupp Arena. But let's move on to our 4-team underdog moneyline parlay. You can parlay these, you can throw them in a round robin. From a parlay perspective, want to hit one, hopefully 2 of these throughout the season. Last week we struck out, but who cares? It was a parlay round robin. Doesn't matter if it's 0, 1, or 2. But let's get back on track this week. I'll kick things off. I'm going to go with the Johnnies. I think this is a good buy low spot on St. John's. I still think they're one of the most underrated teams in the country. there's some matchup advantages I like here. They can force some turnovers. Their matchup zone, that morphing matchup zone, can really just disrupt what Connecticut wants to do with all of their motion and screening. So I think that there's some advantages for the St. John's defense. Offensively, the St. John's might have some trouble. They're going to have to get on the offensive glass, which you could do a bit against UConn. And then you have some injury uncertainty with UConn. When UConn has all 5 guys healthy, they are a juggernaut, especially defensively. But if they're missing one key piece, so Cameron's not 100%, you either have to sacrifice spacing or defense, and they're just not the same monsters. I think this is a really good spot. And if you look, UConn's been on fire, but look at their past 4 road games in league play. They lost to Seton Hall. The other 3 were right down to the final minutes. So I think St. John's is lively here, adding some injury uncertainty. And I think that you have some value on the home dog. Should be an awesome atmosphere in the Garden. Randall, where are you going?
Well, guys, let's have some fun. If we're going to pick a money line underdog, why don't we pick a team that has not won a game this year? Let's go with Detroit Mercy. 0-23 this year, 0-13 in the horizon, but they are home facing Robert Morris. And I am taking them. I think they're plus 175 on the money line. Look, guys, they lost in double overtime at Robert Morris 2 weeks ago. You know they can score in them. Jaden Stone was out for most of the year. He's their leading scorer. He's back. He put in 36 points against Robert Morris, who cannot guard the 3. And you want to talk about a spot. This is Bobby Morris's 4th straight game on the road. If not now, then when? Detroit Mercy and the Titans to get a win against a poor Robert Morris team playing their 4th straight road game after they went to double overtime earlier against the Colonials. Let's have some fun here. A winless team for the moneyline underdog. I'll take the Titans.
I love it. They're part of my own personal round robin today. I agree with the spot. And if not now, when? Maybe Ooey Pooey, IUPUI at home. Right. That's about it. But yeah, I think Detroit is live today. I can't wait. All these top 10 matchups. I'm going to be watching SEMO and Detroit, the life of a college basketball bettor. Greg, what do you got here?
Well, it's a big win for the city of Detroit, first of all, that we're spending such time talking about such a prestigious program on a day like today. So thank you, gentlemen. But listen, I got to say, there's not many things on earth I like to do less than be head-to-head with Calabrese. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here, which is convenient because Hunter Dickinson's essentially the devil for me, and I'm going to advocate for him. I like Kansas money line. Gentlemen, you know the numbers here. This is the 2nd time that Kansas has been an underdog at home in the Bill Self era. The first time they won by 13 against Baylor in 2021. He's 95% wins at home in his tenure. He has 17 losses in his career, 319 wins. Calvin Sampson's 0-7 in this building as a coach. I get it with Houston. They're good. They play harder than anybody. No doubt. This is a very good basketball team. This is still their first trip through Big 12 play. There's road bumps. We've already seen some bumps in the road for Houston. 1-2 on the season against top 25 opponents is Houston's record. Like metrics love him. I get it. The Evan Mia numbers that you shared. I'm a huge Evan Mia guy. His model with player performance really tends to favor the teams that are just near the top of the team rankings. That's why he has a bunch of Purdue guys ranked in the top 12 offensively. He's got a bunch of Houston guys ranked in the top 12 defensively. It's fair, but they earned those numbers blowing out teams in the non-conference. They haven't been perfect in Big 12 play. This is just an insane spot for a team to have to go to. Everybody knows I'm going to trust Allen Fieldhouse. I'm going to trust the Fog. I'm going to trust Bill Self to get it done.
Yeah, I could see both sides of the argument. And look, it's a great spot. And Kansas home dog. I think we said 3 times since 90 they've been a home dog. That they've won all 3 outright. And Self, incredible coach and adjuster. But you this year, I mean, college basketball, the market is so much tougher to beat than it was even 3-4 years ago, let alone 10-15. This would have been 4. And then maybe closes 2. Now it opens 2.5. Probably closes pick. It's a whole different ballgame. But I think Kevin McCullough, his just how effective he is massive in this game. We talked about this on the podcast on Thursday night, but he's probably I don't really follow NBA draft stuff, but he's probably a first-round draft pick, D&3 guy. Kansas doesn't have a lot of depth. Jackson looked better in last game. That was against Oklahoma State. You have Jackson and Furphy out there. Your D really suffers without McCullough. McCullough's needed as that other shooter. He also can create. So I want to see if how he looks and if he's 100% healthy. I do think, again, against Houston on the road, they're a good team to live bet against. You saw that against Texas because their offense just goes through droughts. And then Kansas is going to be, look, Houston elite in every defensive metric, but Kansas is going to be able to get some transition buckets. They're elite in transition. They're going to do it against everyone. So when Houston goes stagnant, is missing some shots, Kansas is going to make a couple runs, especially with the home crowd. So this is a live betting game to me. I can see both sides of the coin. But Calabrese, close us out with the 4-team moneyline underdog.
Well, I'll respond in two ways. First, the last road team to be a favorite at Fog Allen and cover was led by Mookie Blaylock at point guard and Stacey King for Oklahoma in 1989. So I would argue maybe they're due. Second part, to Randall's pick with Detroit Mercy. First of all, shout out to the Jesuits. Second of all, I may be the only gambler in America who's bet both Mississippi Valley State money line and Detroit money line. So I'm with you in spirit. I don't know if I can do it again. I put myself in timeout on betting on teams that are winless this year, but I like where your head's at and the spot. I'm going to go with a rivalry here, the Capital City Classic. Richmond traveling crosstown to take on VCU. And basically it boils down to this. They have the best player on the floor. In A10 play, Jordan King is averaging 22 points per game on 48% shooting from three-point range. This is a double revenge spot after VCU swept the Spiders last year. And also, Richmond cannot take their foot off the accelerator. They're only a game up on Dayton, really a game and a half because of that head-to-head win. But Dayton at 8-1 in A10 play. This is going to come down to the wire. So they need every single win that they can get. I think they're a much better team than VCU. I understand that it's going to be kind of a zoo, in terms of the atmosphere of this game. But I still think at plus 145, there's a lot of value on a Richmond team that has way over exceeded expectations. They were picked 11th preseason in the A10, and they got a chance to win the regular season crown. I think it's time to put some respect on their name. I'm going to go with them on the money line as a dog.
Well, I can say, as you mentioned, you're the only one maybe in America that's bet both Mississippi Valley State and Detroit on the money line. I don't even have to ask which games. We know you went 0-2 on those games, but I am extremely disappointed. This was your chance, and I would have allowed it and not said anything to you. We had Detroit in the underdog parlay, Mississippi Valley State sitting right out there. Who do they play today? Pine Bluff, I think, tonight.
Listen, the Golden Lions are not to be trifled with. And second of all, I already spent my allotment for the season on my Huddle one-game pass to watch Mississippi Valley State. I can't drop another $8.51 to watch the Delta Devils.
Well, I think that's a good transition. Someone out there, someone's going to be sweating that game. I think that's tonight during Duke-UNC, which brings us to our second marquee matchup. One of the best rivalries, not only in college basketball, but in all of sports. Huge game, not only for the rivalry, but for the ACC standings. Duke can, with a win here, can tie UNC in the loss column. This will have major implications for seeding, most likely, come March. Should be a really good one here. I'm going to go with the under. I think that there's, North Carolina does want to play faster, which is a bit scary. But both teams are really good defending in transition and also limiting transition opportunities. Both teams can compete on the defensive glass, and both teams don't really foul. And those are three paths to offense for both teams, especially Carolina. Want to get out and run, want to get to the line, want to get on the offensive glass. Duke also has some shooting regression. I know UNC's defense does as well, so there's a little push-pull there. But, on the road, you got some young guys both teams are relying on. There could be some nerves and some tightness. I think this turns into more of a half-court game with how both teams can get on the defensive glass, don't foul, and can defend in transition. So I like the under. Randall, what do you got here?
Yeah, I'll co-sign on that. Big game unders. And you said it. First of all, I think the bigs inside are going to neutralize each other. Kyle Filipowski has not been scoring at the same rate he did last year. He's doing a lot of ancillary stuff. Baycott can check in and out of games. Harrison Ingram, super hot to start the year, then has regressed a little bit. I just think there's going to be a lot of caution. This is a huge game with ramifications for the ACC, for the seeding you talked about. People are going to think it's going to be high pace and they're going to go over. Why? Because they've seen North Carolina recently score. They've seen Duke been able to put up points. I think Jeremy Roach is the wild card. We talked about it on Thursday. He has to be able to perform because the most consistent player that I rely on here is RJ Davis, who to me is a no-brainer first-team All-American. But the rest of the unit on both teams, I think can match up pretty well. I'm concerned about it. It's going to be close to the vest. It's always going to be a close game. I don't see it as high scoring because I don't think the bigs inside are scoring enough to make it consistent, but they should be able to rebound to make it one and done. So I'm co-signing with you, Stuck, on the under here in this matchup.
Greg, you have a take on the side.
I do. I like the under for the record, but the stronger play for me is actually Duke +4. I know that's a little bit scary. Everybody and their mamas loves UNC right now. I've been told for 2 months this is the hottest team in college basketball. The only problem with that, Duke's 11-1 in the last 2 months. North Carolina's 10-2 in the last 2 months. Has it always been pretty? No, it has not. I've blasted Duke for years about how this program struggles on the road in ACC play. Not this year. They've won 4 straight away games. This team has turned into some road warriors. If you remember, John Shire, 2-0 against North Carolina. He got the sweep last year. Yeah, that's largely because North Carolina was a little bit worse. But if we're talking coaching matchup here, I think I favor John Shire, who hasn't really done anything wrong in his young tenure. Hubert Davis, a lot of people love his roster this year. I'm not so sure we still love Hubert as a big game guy. The big thing, though, we've talked about it for weeks now with Carolina Stuck. It's shooting. Can they guard the three-point line or not? The big run they had of wins was largely because nobody could make a three-pointer against this team. In their last 2 games that have gotten dicey, that they have failed to cover, both of, they pushed the number against Florida State, was games where both teams went 9 for 20 from 3. I think we're seeing positive shooting regression. Duke's a great shooting team, 39% from 3 on the season. As long as they can hit some shots early in this game, a lot of guys in Duke uniforms that have never lost to North Carolina, that sophomore class, I think can come in confident and either pull off the cover or the victory tonight in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I think Duke does have some advantages in the half court, moving Baycott around that they can take advantage of, and they certainly will get their looks from 3. And whereas they might have some shooting regression coming their way, they're still a really good shooting team with excellent outside shooters. And you're right, they've been playing much better on the road of late. I was really impressed with their effort at Virginia Tech, right? They steal that game against Clemson, just 2 days later playing a desperate Virginia Tech team at home in a place that's been a house of horrors for them with UNC on deck. They go to Blacksburg and really take care of business. Calabrese, I do want to let you know, I was listening to all of you there intently as always, but I was checking, shout the BetMGM best price in the market. Detroit, Mississippi Valley State, 2-team moneyline parlay. This is the day. Both teams get the win, plus 1325. What do you got?
All right, let's just keep it on Duke-UNC here for a second. I almost went with Duke in this spot because I'm interested in the game within the game. Now that Proctor's healthy again, that pick and roll advantage that Duke has, Baycott can be exposed in those situations. But I'm still, in terms of the best bet in this game, I still think it's under 151.5. 2 top 15 defenses, according to Haslametrics. Duke certainly, in terms of tempo, wanted to play slower, 178th in adjusted tempo. And also, when you get into ACC play, under is paid out in 9 of the 10 North Carolina games, and Duke 5 of their 9 games as well. So I think under is the preferable play here. I also like what UNC brings to the table. I know they've taken a step back a little bit in terms of their 3-point defense, but they're still one of the best in the conference. Their defensive rebounding, they don't turn the ball over, and neither does Duke. So I don't see a lot of easy buckets in this one. I'll go under 151.5.
Yeah, that's another thing to mention. Both teams really take care of the ball, which, again, would probably lead to more of a half-court game. All right, we have one final task to get to, and that's our second and final best bet. I will kick things off here. I'm going to go with Georgia State at home against Troy. Scott Cross did a tremendous job with this Troy team, one of the least experienced rosters in the country coming into the season. But I think this is a good time to sell high on them. They're only 2-7 on the road. Their only road wins are against lowly Coastal Carolina and Georgia Southern. And Georgia State, meanwhile, I think it's a good opportunity to buy low on them. They've lost 5 straight, but 4 were on the road during a 4-game road trip, and then they lost to first place App State the other night. Most importantly, I think it's a really good matchup for them. When you play Troy, you have to handle their pressure. They're going to press. They're going to pressure you. Georgia State can do that. I think they're 12th in turnover rate nationally. You have to do 2 other things as well. You have to defend the 3 ball, and you have to get after it on the defensive glass. Those are 2 of the primary avenues of offense outside of forcing turnovers that Troy has. Georgia State does both as well. And this aggressive Troy defense, they do foul a lot. Georgia State's good at the line. So I think it's a good opportunity and good matchup to back the Panthers at home. Randall, where are you going?
Yeah, we're going to Utah State here, getting 5.5 against San Diego State. The San Diego State defense is not at the level it was last year. And the big thing for them as well is they are not shooting the three-pointer well. Last year in Mount West play, San Diego State 38% from three-point range. This year, 29%. Utah State has a one-game lead over Boise in the Mount West. They just beat Boise. Danny Sprinkle from Montana State has done a fantastic job with Utah State, and he brought over Great Osabor, who's been fantastic. He's a double machine inside. You're not going to push Utah State around. The only way they lose was when they lost to New Mexico, when the Lobos went crazy, scored 95 plus on them. That's not going to happen here with San Diego State. The game is actually at noon San Diego State time, so this is not a nighttime game. It's 3:30 Eastern, which is 12:30 out there in San Diego State. I think it's a slog. I think it's close. I like the points here with a Utah State team, to me, that is better overall than San Diego State. We will take the Aggies plus 5.5, who I think are very quietly a very dangerous team in March.
Yeah, that's a good point on the start time. Maybe that suppresses the home crowd advantage of one of the better ones in the country. Greg, you're staying out west?
I am. I love the Utah State pick, and I'm going to take another West Coast underdog here. I'm going St. Mary's +4 at Gonzaga, trusting my gut here in a couple ways. I think St. Mary's is the better basketball team. I think that's been true for about 2 months. To me, this is the worst Gonzaga rendition that we've seen in a very long time under Mark Few. They've been in dogfights over the last couple of weeks to San Francisco and then to Pacific, which was the real eyebrow raiser. Pacific 346th on KenPom. Gonzaga was in a one-possession game with them with 6 minutes left in that game. The same Pacific team that St. Mary's held to 28 points in an entire game in this same 2-week span. Gonzaga this season, guys, they haven't beaten anybody. They're 0-4 against top 60 opponents. 3 of those 4 have been double-digit comfortable losses. St. Mary's, I talked about Duke being road warriors. How about the Gales? 5-0 in true road games this season. They've got the 4th longest win streak in the country. One of those road wins, a great win against Colorado State, who's won all 11 games against other teams that aren't St. Mary's at home this year. I just like this matchup. I think St. Mary's has the best offensive player on the floor in Aiden Mahaney. Getting 4 points, going to trust my gut that the Gales can go in and not just cover, but win this basketball game.
Yeah, can't wait for that one in the nightcap. Calabrese, I was going to say, looking at your best bet here, I was going to say you don't have any A10. That's part of your contract, but I forgot you did with Richmond in the money on underdog. Where are you going for your final best bet?
I'm going to lay the huge number with the Catamounts. Vermont always smokes Binghamton. They've won 10 straight by an average of 24 points per game in the series. But our own Tanner McGrath, he is the America East expert. He's got all the coaches on speed dial. He actually texted John Becker, their head coach, to ask how his team was reacting to the new America East conference schedule, which is Thursday, Saturday. And the quicker turnaround time has forced him to play more players. 9 players average over 14 minutes per game. How have the Catamounts responded? They've had 8 different leading scorers in the last 9 games. I think they're going to run the Bearcats off the floor in this spot. They have one of the only home court advantages in the entire conference, and I think it's going to make a difference here. Even though Binghamton is trending a little bit up, Vermont has won 8 straight. They're coming off of a 3-game road trip in which they beat Bryant and UMass Lowell, who are their only competition in the conference, but they have to keep their foot on the accelerator. They're only a game up on those 2 schools. So I see Vermont rolling in this spot and winning by 20 plus.
Yeah, the Vermont defense is playing just at an incredible level right now. Good stuff there. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. There's a quick recap of the bets on the screen for you, but thanks for joining me. As always, thanks to our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe, like button. Also, one final reminder to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. And also, a final word from our sponsor, BetMGM. BBOC is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $158 in bonus bets when you bet $5. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you find Big Bets on Campus wherever you listen to podcasts. 3 episodes a week. Make sure you check us out there. We'll be back same time next week, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Good luck on all of your wagers, and we will see you on Monday for the recap. Cheers.